If you think drag racing was always two cars, two lanes, and a Christmas tree counting down, you're dead wrong. In 1953, at the Santa Ana Drag Strip in California, cars launched three wide, sometimes four. The starter was a guy in khakis waving a flag. The timer? A dude with a stopwatch squinting through tire smoke. And if you came in second, nobody recorded your time. You just lost. The sport you know today, the precision, the electronics, the rule book thicker than a phone book, all of it came from decades of beautiful, dangerous chaos. Today, we're going back to when drag racing was inventing itself, when the rules changed every weekend, when a car could run 145 miles per hour and nobody could prove it. This is the secret history of drag racing. Our story begins in the California desert, 1947. World War II just ended, and thousands of young men came home with two things: mechanical skills from fixing bombers and tanks, and a desperate need for speed. They found it on the dry lakes: El Mirage, Muroc, Rosamond, flat, empty, perfect. The Southern California Timing Association, the SCTA, had been organizing land speed racing since 1938, but after the war, it exploded. But here's what most people get wrong. These weren't drag races. Not yet. Land speed racing was one car at a time, running through a measured mile, chasing top speed. You'd wait your turn, make your run, and a guy with a stopwatch would tell you how fast you went. Some guys wanted something different, something confrontational. Enter Wally Parks, editor of Hot Rod magazine, SCTA organizer, and a man who saw that young hot rodders were racing on the streets of Los Angeles and dying. Parks had an idea. What if we gave them a legal place to race, side by side, not for top speed, but for pure acceleration, car versus car, the way they were already doing it on Sepulveda Boulevard at 2 a.m. July 2nd, 1950, the Santa Ana Drags, the first organized drag race held on a closed course under SCTA sanction. A former airstrip, a quarter-mile of straight pavement, and a simple premise: whoever gets there first wins. But it wasn't clean. It was chaos. By 1951, Wally Parks founded the National Hot Rod Association, the NHRA, and in 1953, they published the first official rule book. Now, here's a myth you need to forget, that early drag racing had no rules. That's wrong. It had rules, lots of them. The problem was they kept changing, and nobody could agree on what they meant. The 53 rule book divided cars into classes: stock cars, factory original; sports cars, your MGs and Jaguars; gas coupes, stripped-down sedans running on pumped gas; gas roadsters, the same, but with the roof chopped off; and at the top, dragsters, purpose-built machines with no fenders, no windshields, no compromise. But here's what made it wild. The rules were more like suggestions. You could run a 32 Ford Coupe in the gas class, chop the roof 6 inches to lower wind resistance, swap the flathead V8 for a bigger Mercury engine, ditch the fenders, strip the interior, and as long that you weren't running alcohol or nitromethane fuel, you were stock. The gasser became the rock star of early drag racing, jacked up in the front, not for style, but to transfer weight to the rear tires on launch. Loud, violent, and constantly braking. The crowd loved them, but the real innovation was happening at the front of the pack. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Rear-engine dragsters existed in the 1950s. Not the clean, long-rail slingshots you're thinking of. Those were front-engine. But there were guys, crazy guys, putting engines behind the driver as early as 1954. Small displacement motors, no safety equipment, pure experimentation. They didn't work well. The weight distribution was terrible, the cars were unstable. Most racers went back to front-engine designs. But the point is this: innovation in drag racing didn't start with safety committees or engineering studies. It started with some guy in a garage saying, "What if we try this?" And sometimes this nearly killed you.
Okay, let's talk about how these races actually worked. Because if you think it was 2 cars, 2 lanes, cleanest race wins, I need you to sit down. At many West Coast strips in the early 1950s, they ran cars 3 or even 4 wide. Not because they wanted to, because they had 200 cars and 1 day to get through them all. And here's the kicker. On the West Coast, elapsed time didn't matter, only top speed. Think about that. You could leave the line 5 seconds after the other guy, but if you hit a higher speed in the last 132 feet, the speed trap, you won. Meanwhile, on the East Coast, they ran it the opposite way. Fastest elapsed time from start to finish won. Speed didn't matter. Same sport, 2 different Americas, 2 completely different philosophies. And the timing? Mechanical clocks, pressure pads at the starting line, photoelectric beams at the finish. When they worked. When they didn't, human judges. Guys with stopwatches and notebooks, writing down numbers in the dust. 1959, Great Bend, Kansas. A relatively unknown driver named Chris Karaminis made a run that changed everything. His car, a small block Chevy-powered rail, allegedly hit 204 miles per hour. That would have been the fastest drag racing pass ever recorded. Faster than the top fuel cars, faster than the big Hemis. A world record. There was just one problem. The timing system measured speed over a 132-foot trap near the finish line. Then, using a conversion chart, it calculated your average speed over the full quarter mile. But it was an estimate. If you had a massive power surge in that final 132 feet, the chart would show a higher average speed than you actually ran. Did Karaminas really run 204? Maybe. Probably not. But without modern timing equipment, nobody could prove it either way. The controversy taught the sport a hard lesson. If you can't measure it accurately, you can't claim it's real. Here's something that'll make modern racers' heads explode. In the early days, only 1 car per race got a time slip. The winner. If you lost, tough luck. No time, no speed, no record you were even there. This meant that half of drag racing history is just gone. Legendary racers who came in second at big events, we have no idea what they ran. At the first NHRA Nationals in 1955, held in Great Bend, Kansas, a driver named Calvin Rice beat Fritz Voigt in the top eliminator final. We know Rice ran 146.86 miles per hour in 10.30 seconds. Voigt? No record. He lost. His numbers were never recorded. Think about how insane that is. The second fastest car in the country at the most important race of the year, and we don't know what it ran. Before the Christmas tree, there was the flag man. And he wasn't just starting races. He was judge, jury, and sometimes executioner of your weekend. The starter would stand between the cars, arm raised with the flag. Both drivers would stage, creeping forward, revving engines. When the starter thought it was fair, he'd drop the flag. But fair was subjective. If one car crept forward, the starter might hold the flag. If a driver revved too hard and rolled, the starter might wave him back. Sometimes, if a driver jumped the start badly, the flagman would just stop the race and make them do it again. At the 1955 Nationals, the top elucidator final between Calvin Rice and Fritz Voigt was restarted 4 times. 4 times. One car jumped, restart. Other car jumped, restart. Both cars rolled, restart. Imagine that today. Imagine John Force red lighting at the finals and the officials just saying, let's run it again. It was chaos. Beautiful human chaos. 1963. Everything changed. The NHRA introduced the Christmas tree, an electronic starting system with staged lights and countdown bulbs. Pro racing? All 3 embers at once, then green 4/10 later. It was objective. It was fair. It was precise. And the racers hated it. Why? Because for 15 years, they'd been gaming the flagman. A good driver knew how to time the starter's arm drop, knew when to feather the throttle to get an edge. It was part of the skill. The tree ended all of that. Now, reaction time was pure reflex. Human versus machine. No gamesmanship. But here's the thing. The tree didn't just make racing fairer.
It changed what racing was. Before the tree, drag racing rewarded engine builders and drivers who could manage power. After the tree, it rewarded drivers who could react in 0.4 seconds. It was a new sport. Same cars, different game. 1969, Don Garlits, Big Daddy, the Michael Jordan of drag racing, did something that changed the sport forever. Before his run, he sat on the starting line and spun his rear tires. Deliberately, for several seconds. He was heating the tires, creating grip, cleaning off debris. But more importantly, he was putting on a show. The crowd went insane. Within a year, every professional drag racer was doing burnouts. Not because they had to, because the fans demanded it. Today, a burnout is theater. It's foreplay. It's the moment the crowd knows the run is about to happen. But in 1968, you'd get yelled at for wasting time. Drag racing didn't just evolve technically. It evolved as entertainment. By the 1970s, the NHRA national events had become massive. 400, 500, sometimes 600 entries. Dozens of classes. Gas, altered, modified, comp, street, exhibition. And they all had to qualify. Saturday was class eliminations. Every class crowned a winner. Junior stock, D-gas, E-modified, F-altered. You could win your class, get a trophy, and go home. Sunday was top eliminator. The fastest 8 cars from Saturday came back to race for the overall win. But here's the wild part. If you won your class on Saturday, but weren't fast enough to make the top 8 overall, your weekend was done. You could be the best D-gasser in the country and still not race on Sunday. It was brutal. It was confusing. And it made for incredible drama. While the NHRA was trying to bring order, another organization was leaning into chaos. The American Hot Rod Association, AHRA, run by a promoter named Jim Tice. Tice had one rule: never let the fans leave disappointed. If a final round car broke on the starting line, Tice would pull the next fastest car from earlier rounds and make them race. He called it the quick loser rule. It wasn't fair, it wasn't consistent, but it was entertaining. The NHRA thought it was a circus. Tice thought the NHRA was boring. Both were right. Today, drag racing runs on precision. Computers, lasers, milliseconds. But once, not that long ago, it was held together by chalk lines, flagmen, and blind trust. The drivers who raced in those early decades weren't just racers. They were inventors, rule makers, and sometimes rule breakers. The next time you watch a Christmas tree count down, remember, every light on that pole is a ghost of the past, a memory of when the world's fastest sport was still trying to figure out how to begin.